Good evening. My name is David Krell. There will be a big pause while you say, "Who cares?" I want to hear from the panel. So please join me in welcoming again Hal Linden, Gail and Tim Matheson. Tim, I want to start with you. According to the archives, you and your castmates in Animal House went to the University of Oregon to scout out the location and get a feel for the college experience.
Oh, yeah.
And you were in the real life Omega House.
Yeah.
And according to my research, you and Bruce McGill, who played D-Day, were chased out and on the front lawn, and he turned to you and said, "Timmer, we have to make a run for it." Can you talk about that experience?
I will, yes. I just want to say to Hal and Max, it's a pleasure for me to be up here with you, and I'm a huge admirer of your work, and thank you for having me here.
Feeling is mutual.
We did go to the SAE house. It was me, Peter Rieger, Bruce McGill, Karen Allen, Jim Doughton, who played one of the Omegas, and we were thrown out because nobody but a fraternity brother is allowed inside the fraternity house. We didn't know that. We were there with a couple of local girls who said, "Oh, come on with us. We're going to a bunch of fraternity parties." So the truth is, though, what happened was Bruce McGill, I was trapped on the porch. Bruce McGill came back in to get me out because these guys were just like gonna kill me. And he got knocked down. I came out to him and I got knocked down, and I looked at him on the ground and I said, "Wait, Bruce, whatever we do, don't run, because they'll chase us." And then we got up and got knocked down again, and we looked at each other and said, "Let's run."
Hal, according to my research,
I was not thrown out.
you had won a Tony, and you were in an agent's office, and you had a choice between two offers. One was another Broadway show, and one was a pilot called The Life and Times of Barney Miller, and you said...
It was even worse than that.
Okay.
The first pilot of Barney Miller never sold. It was called The Life and Times of Barney Miller. It did not sell. It was shown during the summer as the ABC Comedy Festival, you know. That was the dead pilots. I was offered that year the lead in a new Broadway musical. I had already won the Tony for the Rothschilds, and this was the next. I'd done another musical after that, and here was a brand new musical, and Danny Arnold, the producer of Barney Miller, managed to talk the network into doing 2 more episodes just to see if it was possible to. And so I wasn't offered a season, I was offered 2 episodes. So which do you do? Broadway musical or 2 episodes? And I waited until I couldn't make my mind up. And I'll tell you how cavalier it was. I was in my manager's office, and the producers of the musical had said they had to have an answer by close of business Friday. And it was Friday afternoon, I was sitting there, and he finally turned to me and says, "What do we do, flip a coin?" And I said, very cavalierly, "Well, we've done Broadway, let's try television." That's how...
I think we can all agree it was an excellent choice.
I certainly agree.
Gave me a career.
How did you get involved in Barney Miller, and was there ever any talk of a Wojo spinoff? Or is that just an urban legend?
Yeah, no, well, how I got involved was I got a call from my agents that said, you know, there's an audition you've been called in for. It's a cop show, but I don't know, it's a comedy. And to me, the cop shows in that time were all pretty silly. And that drew me, and I went in and met and read for Danny Arnold, who we may talk about some more because he was such a creative force. And at the time I had started writing songs a lot, just to my own breadcrumbs in the cosmic forest, I think of them. So I saw the pilot as a way that I could get enough money to go up to Big Sur in a place I knew where I could rent a place with a piano and write songs. So that was kind of where I was, that my short acting career had just sort of opened up that part. Fortunately, they picked up the pilot right away, and I got a chance to learn from a great master and others, and here we are.
It was the second pilot.
The second one, yeah.
That was the two episodes.
Tim, there's a certain level of swagger in a lot of your characters. I had the pleasure of interviewing you about a movie called Dreamer, which was Rocky meets bowling. I wonder if you could talk about the swagger in Vice President Hoynes, in Dreamer, in Otter, different levels, and also your favorite Jack Warden story. Jack Warden played his mentor in Dreamer.
Well, I never quite look at it. I mean, the characters of the Hoynes that I played in The West Wing, he was so sure of himself. And so he was LBJ to JFK. He just said, I should be president, not this guy, and so he had a certain sense of surety about his own position, and also playing down the importance of this president who knew nothing. And so, I mean, that's basically what Aaron Sorkin wrote, and that's how we played it, which was great fun, Jack Warden was a treat to work with, who was one of our great character actors from Shampoo and an assortment of other movies. And I did a show with Jack. He did a show called Jigsaw John. I had done a test with him for the recurring part in that I didn't get. But when we did the test, he basically directed me through it. He took me aside, and I had a transition I was having trouble making. He said, no, you get the idea for that transition about 5 lines before that. And it was just it was a simple thing. He just threw it off the cuff. It just made so much sense in the scene. It was like one of those directions that oh, okay, great. It made the scene work. But he was like that always. And he just walked in, as they say, he hit his mark, he looked you in the eye, and he told the truth. And he was just great.
Just to follow up, in addition to the West Wing.
Let me interject something. I just want to point out to you, you used the name Aaron Sorkin. When you get to do anything written by Aaron Sorkin, or for that matter, for the writing staff of Barney Miller, that's what creates great television.
Yes.
If it ain't on the page, it ain't going to be there.
True.
Or in the theater, we say, if it ain't on the page, it ain't on the stage. I'm bringing that up because the writers have been striking, and their value has never been appreciated the way it should be. If it isn't written, it ain't going to be there.
That's right.
If I could just follow up quickly, in addition to the West Wing, you played Ronald Reagan and JFK. How do you go about your political research? Do you talk to politicians? Do you talk to historians? Whether it's the West Wing or something real, what's your process?
Well, I learned a lot from playing JFK badly, so it helped me realize it's not about the voice, and you get the voice. And so when I did Reagan, I didn't focus on. I mean, I had his mannerisms, and I worked on his accent. He had a Midwestern accent and that raspy voice he had, but it was really the heart and what was going on inside. And the other thing I learned about all that, I think, was you can't act politics. So whether you believe in them or not, really what you have to capture is the essence of that person and what their heart is, and that's what I focus.
All three of you have been involved in provocative, hot-button stories. Hal, you were a rabbi in an after-school special about Holocaust education called Writing on the Wall. Max, we talked earlier, you were in a leprosy episode about the reboot of Hawaii Five-0.
Yeah.
And Tim, you were in a TV movie called The Littlest Victims. So I want to start with Hal. Why was it so important for you to do that after-school special? And I understand it was based on a true story.
Yes, it was. It was based upon the true story. Anytime you can get to do something that's got meaning, you jump at it. It's not easy to find good properties that you can invest yourself in, but anytime you can really delve into an issue you're interested in, you jump. So that story had to do with a wave of anti-Semitism and a rabbi who dealt with it generously and openly and tried to educate the perpetrators of the anti-Semitism.
Who were teenagers.
Who were teenagers and who didn't realize what they were really doing. You don't always have depth to what you're asked to do, but when it is important, you jump at it.
Max, in the Hawaii Five-0 episode, there are several twists. You played a member of a leper colony on Hawaii, based in fact, and in the story, was a 19-year-old guard at one of the concentration camps who hides out and becomes an extraordinary caregiver, and basically under that cloak has escaped notice until McGarrett and his team go in and finally find him, not in Hawaii, but somewhere else. Can you talk about that episode?
Well, yeah, it was really interesting because I learned, one thing is that people thought leprosy was, highly contagious, which it's not actually. Some people are more disposed to it. The leper colony in Hawaii was pretty much, I played a white character who had been there as a child, but that was a rarity. Most of the people who went to that island were sent to that island, sometimes being pushed off the boat offshore, and good luck, children, people, and they were people of color. The white people, the doctors would keep it quiet, and there was that element of kind of a concentration camp. And here was this story where this guy had escaped. He'd been a guard in a concentration camp in Germany, but he was 19 at the time. And he ended up becoming a missionary on the island and taking care and having essentially saved the life of my character. So there was an incredible kind of irony and even paradox in there. And it was interesting because it was at the end of the show, we're doing the last scene where my character is walking the Hawaii Five-0 people off. I hope you get your man. And they're saying to the director, there's something going on here. This is not a guy to just judge as a bad guy, and we had a discussion about it and found a way to deal with that. But what we do is we're seeking truth through imagination, and what we do when we're part of the audience is we're doing the same thing, and when we all do it together, then it happens. So it takes this, and so this time here, to be here like this, so many years later from when we were doing it, but it's actually wonderful to complete this circle and share this humanity together. I really appreciate it.
When I mentioned swagger, and a lot of people know you from, of course, Animal House, Fletch, some more lighthearted fare. What was The Littlest Victims about, and who did you play?
What Hal and Max are talking about are playing, I think, real-life heroes, or people that are sort of based on real-life heroes. And I got the chance in The Littlest Victims to play a guy named James Oleski, Dr. James Oleski, who was a pediatrician in New Jersey at the beginning of the AIDS scourge. And all of a sudden he noticed that his the infants he was treating were symptomatic of AIDS. And no one quite knew what AIDS was or how it was transmitted, and everybody was very nervous. And he sort of put one and one together and got two, that the mothers of these infants were infected by their husbands who were drug users or bisexual and having homosexual relationships, and infected the mother who it transmitted to the child. And he helped figure out what the source was, how it was transmitted, which, you know, sort of was the beginning of sort of solving that issue. And he's quite a wonderful guy. I've actually talked to him recently, and he just did it for the kids. You know, he was a pediatrician, so he looked after infants and young kids, and so it was a remarkable way around finding out
Right.
what the source of AIDS was.
But how is it as an actor to go from playing these very lighthearted characters to someone who's very thoughtful, there's a certain amount of sobriety in the performance, it has to be. So how do you dial it down? Where do you find the voice, especially for someone who's a real life person?
Well, as Hal said, I think what you just want to try and find the truth that's on the page, and we didn't have a lot of jokes in it, you know. And we try to keep it, you know, light as doctors do. You know.
Every property is different.
Yeah.
And every property, you start from zero and build one piece at a time. And you find, you look for an overall objective for the character.
Mhm.
What am I trying to accomplish? And how do I try to accomplish it? Basically, if you answer those two questions, you've got a skeleton that you can flesh out. And that's the function of, you don't always have that time to do it in films
Right.
or in television, but that's the way we were brought up to do it on stage. When you have a couple of weeks of rehearsal, you can try to find the flesh of a character. But it all starts, as Max said, with the imagination. How do you want this guy to be? Where is he going? What is he trying to accomplish? Those are the questions you keep asking yourself.
Max, I want to close with this, and then we'll go to Q&A. As a baseball author, you have played two real-life people, Bert Schotten in 42, who most people don't know was Jackie Robinson's, technically his first Major League manager, and Babe Ruth on the stage in a one-man performance. Can you talk about those two roles?
Well, they were both great experiences. The Babe was, and I didn't play baseball. I played football and basketball and track, so I didn't really. But the Babe Ruth thing was a lot about. It was one of the one-man shows. You know, you've heard of Mark Twain and stuff like that. So, and that's an interesting thing because in the, you know, here you're the audience, and I'm Max Field, the actor, and Barney Miller. But if we were doing the Babe, you're the audience, you're acting with me, you're going, yep, that's the Babe. He's talking to us and he's making jokes or whatever. And it was just a great experience getting into that guy. Particularly, I had a chance to get to know his daughter. And it really helped me with the part of him in later years. And 42 was a wonderful project to be part of because it was like a small, you know, heartfelt movie, but it had all A-list actors and crew and everything, but we knew we were making a different kind of movie, and it was just great to be a part of it. And Bert Schotten he was brought in as when the big name manager was fired, and he was a longtime friend of the Branch Rickey, who is the guy who is credited with, you know, saying, okay, we're going to break this color barrier this year, and so they were both cool experiences to be a part of. But I still can't play baseball.
So we're going to open it up to Q&A. Please shout out your question when I call on you. Be as brief as you can. They cannot talk about present or future projects because of the strike.